the blood of Jesus.
Welcome to A Biblical Worldview. I'm your girl, Tanya Michelle, and thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button so you can leave me a like so that I can get into the algorithm. Go ahead and just press that button right now on your way in. Leave some comments on the video should you desire to do so, and share the video with your friends. Also, there are some links to my socials in the description box underneath the video. You can follow me on my socials, and a couple of them are links where you can contribute to my efforts here at the Biblical Worldview. And if you decide to contribute, your contribution will be greatly appreciated and will help me continue to bring you content from a biblical perspective. So let's get into it. Well, if you've been following us on the journey, you know that we are in Genesis chapter 42 right now. And we are on the home stretch because there are only 50 chapters in Genesis, and we're about to round that curve. And so I am so super excited about having stayed the course, about having stuck with it. We have come all the way down through Genesis, and if you would like to go back and see any of my videos on any of the topics that are covered in the book of Genesis, you go to my Rumble channel and everything is there. From Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 all the way to where we are today. And the link to my Rumble channel is in the description box underneath this video in case you're watching me on YouTube or Patreon. So you can go to my Rumble channel and you can see all that we have done over the last, let's see, it's been better than 2 years now since we've been walking through the book of Genesis. So I am super excited about what the Lord has taught us and what a journey it has been. So today we're in Genesis chapter 42, and we're going to start at verse 6. We're going to read all the way down to verse 17 today. We're going to share several verses today, and we're going to talk about Joseph's brothers and how they took that trip and they finally made it to Egypt so that they could get food to take back to their father and their families. So Genesis 42, starting at verse 6, reading down to verse 17, from the Legacy Standard Bible of God's Word, reads like this. Now Joseph was the one in power over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. And Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he disguised himself to them and spoke to them harshly. And he said to them, "Where have you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." But Joseph recognized his brothers, although they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had about them, and he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to look at the nakedness of the land." Then they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." And he said to them, "No, but you have come to look at the nakedness of our land." So they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers in all, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." And Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you will be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you that he may get your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested whether there is truth in you. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." Then he put them all together in prison for 3 days. So we know that Joseph is second in command. He's got primary authority under Pharaoh. He is the man in Egypt. Nobody did anything that Joseph didn't allow. If he said yes, things move forward. If he said no, everything stopped in its tracks. No one other than Pharaoh had more authority in Egypt than Joseph. So Joseph has risen to the most powerful position in Egypt. Now, let me just stop right here and simply acknowledge the sovereignty of God, because there's no way anyone could have risen to Joseph's level of importance outside of God's provision. Joseph had come to Egypt, and when he came to Egypt, he came as a Hebrew slave. He was from a family of shepherds, and those shepherds themselves were an abomination to the Egyptians. Not only that, but he was sold into the lowest level of work that you could get, and that was servitude as a slave. Now, we also, know that the Egyptians, they didn't, not only did not like slaves, they didn't like shepherds. So Joseph was the lowest of the low. I mean, he comes from bottom of the barrel, and there are several schools of thought actually about why Egyptians didn't like shepherds. One school of thought says that there were several cultural, social, and religious differences between the Egyptians and any kind of shepherds. Shepherding was seen as a low class, low level, like I said, bottom of the barrel occupation. Also, I read that Egypt's economy was based on irrigated agriculture, and herding interfered with land use because of the need for more dry land for animals to graze. So Egyptians didn't like shepherds because the shepherds needed the land to be at least semi-dry so that they could feed their animals, while the Egyptians, they irrigated the land so their land stayed nice and moist and wet. And so they didn't like shepherds because shepherds impeded on their land use. But despite all of this, Joseph was promoted to second in command to Pharaoh. There's no way under the sun that happened outside of God's authority. So, in verse 6, we see that Joseph's dream had come true. It says, and Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Joseph's brothers submitted themselves in the most humble way possible, because there is nothing more humble than having your face on the ground. Historians suggest that when they came before Joseph, they prostrated themselves on the ground face down with outstretched arms in front of Joseph. This was a manner of showing humility in Eastern countries. Little did they know that they were living out the dream that they had so vehemently rejected so many years earlier. Man, it is always interesting to see things play out way down the road, way in the future. It is interesting. I am seeing some things playing out around me right now, and it's very interesting. I'll just leave it there. It's very interesting. So in verse 7, we see where Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers didn't recognize him. Verse 7 says, he disguised himself to them and spoke to them harshly. Joseph carried himself as he did when he interacted with the Egyptians and other people groups. He didn't treat them as the near relations that they were. In other words, he didn't treat them like they were his brothers. And when you think about it, the last time they saw him, they didn't treat him like he was their brother. That's just my thought. I won't even charge you for that one. But anyway. So as I ponder this, I wonder, how could Joseph have not gone home all those years to visit his dad, to see if his dad was still alive? How could he have stayed away from his younger brother all those years? Think about it now. He was sold into slavery when he was 17 years old. We suspect that he's at least 30 years old now. So we're talking about a good 13 years since he had been sold into slavery. And we really don't know that he's only 30. He may be older. So it would have been more than 13 years since he was sold into slavery. And now that he sees the brothers have mentioned their father. It sounds like the father is still alive. Joseph had to know that his father was distressed about his disappearance. He knew that his younger brother probably mourned him from the depths of his soul. I can't understand how he could have allowed his father and brother to go through that level of despondence and not try to make any contact with him. And I understand they didn't have cell phones back then. He couldn't just send his dad a quick text. I get it. But still, how could he not have let them know some kind of way that he was okay? Now, I understand when he was sold into slavery, when he was at Potiphar's house, likely Potiphar wouldn't have let him go home to visit because he was a slave. I mean, he was a purchase. So I get that. But as years went by and then he got to be, trusted by Pharaoh. I mean, come on, Joseph. Wasn't there a way that you could get away and go home and visit with your dad? That's just my thought. I'm just pondering. And the Bible doesn't say. And so, yeah, I'm just speculating. Anyway, Joseph spoke harshly to his brothers as he asked them, "Where have you come from?" They were humbly submissive to Joseph because they were hungry. They needed food, and so they said, "We came from the land of Canaan to buy food." And so again, in verse 8, Joseph recognized his brothers, but the brothers didn't recognize him. As he recognized his brothers, he remembered his dream. And we talked about that back in Genesis 37 in verses 7 and 9, where the brothers would, in essence, bow down to him. He told them that. And they didn't like it. But Joseph said to his brothers in verse 9, "You are spies. You have come to look at the nakedness of the land." But his brothers knew that they had not done that. That's not why they were there. And so they said, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." Now, see, if it were me by this time, I'd be saying, "Look, we are hungry. We are not caring anything about the land. All we want is something to eat. Sell us some food, please." But as humbly as they knew how, they tried to convince Joseph that they were not spies, that they were just honest men who were hungry, and they came to Egypt looking for food. So in verse 12, Joseph pretended not to be convinced. He said, "No, but you have come to look at the nakedness of our land." Joseph, at this point, I believe, is digging for information. In order to convince him that they were not spies, Joseph figured that they would give him more information about the state of their family, and that way he could learn about the condition of his father and his youngest brother. He could find out how they were doing without asking how they were doing and without revealing himself to his brothers. So in verse 13, they broke it down for him. They said, "Look, your servants are 12 brothers in all, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan, and behold, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." So they explained to Joseph, "We're just 12 sons of one man, okay? And there are 10 of us here. We left one brother back at home with our dad, and the other brother that we, would have made up number 12, he's not with us anymore. He's more than likely deceased." Well, Joseph is not, and let me just back up to that. The fact that they even mentioned Joseph says that there has been a change in their hearts. Because if they had been the same cruel brothers who sold him into slavery, they wouldn't have mentioned him. I don't believe they would have mentioned him at all. I think now, after some years have passed, their regret has set in. They're older, they're more mature. They know that what they did was wrong. And so they are thinking about this brother that they potentially got rid of. So Joseph took his challenge to another level. He said, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you will be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here." Yeah. In verses 14 to 15, we can now see the purpose for Joseph's behavior. He wanted to force his brothers to bring Benjamin to him so that he could see Benjamin for himself. So he would not let them leave until Benjamin was delivered to him. He said in verse 16, "Send one of you that he may get your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested whether there is truth in you. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." In other words, send one of your brothers back to get Joseph. The rest of you can stay here. And if you do this, then you can prove to me that you're telling the truth. Otherwise, I promise you on the life of Pharaoh, I'm going to believe that you are spies and you're going to be treated as such. So Joseph put all his brothers in jail. And he told them what was going to happen. Yeah. So this portion of this story for me is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, Joseph is pulling a dirty trick on his brothers. Yeah, they deserved it. I get it. And their treatment of him all those years ago deserves repayment. But right now they are hungry. And they simply came to Egypt to get some food so they could take it home to their father, their brother, their wives, and their kids. They were not trying to get all this smoke with the governor of agriculture. On the other hand, Joseph had been so unfairly treated by them. And why? He was unfairly treated by them because they hated him because he was the father's favorite. But that wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault that he was the long-awaited firstborn son of Jacob and Rachel. His dad gave him the colorful tunic. You don't read in scripture where he asked for it. So for them to treat him the way they did was unfair and inexcusable. Yeah, Joseph just should have kind of gotten a little retribution on him. What do you think? But the retribution was not up to Joseph. It wasn't. The Bible teaches us that the Lord said, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." And there are times when people treat us wrong and they do certain things to us, and we really do want to pay them back. We want to. I can't even tell you how many times I have just really wanted to let somebody have it, let them know what I was thinking and tell them, off and all that kind of thing. But that's not our place. The Lord said, "Vengeance is mine." He said, "I will repay." As a matter of fact, he told us, he said, "You don't repay evil for evil." And so that is left up to the Lord to give them what they deserve. It's left up to the Lord in your life, my life, and in Joseph's life, where his brothers are concerned. So in verse 17, he says, "And he put them all together in prison for 3 days. For the next 3 days, they sat in confinement thinking about what was happening." Man, I tell you what, I bet those are the longest 3 days they ever spent. Just thinking about what they were going through right now, thinking about what they had done to their brother. And this was likely the repayment from God for what they had done. They don't really know what to think. And so all of these thoughts are probably swirling in their head, and it is likely torture for these brothers. And they have to go through this torture for 3 whole days. Man, I tell you, something else. So, as we continue through Genesis, we're going to see how this story plays out. We're going to see exactly what happens. We're going to see how long Joseph can keep up this charade. We're going to see how long the brothers can endure. And we're going to see if they follow his directive. Are they going to prove that they are not spies and do what he said? Or are they just going to give in and say, you know what? Do whatever you got to do to us. We'll see. Real Bible students already know the end of this story. But for those of us who are not so familiar with it, we'll see what happens. Well, that's my time. Thank you so much for stopping by Biblical Worldview. Don't forget to leave a like under the video. And I will see you next time.